Hello, guys. Welcome to the chat. I see you guys chatting away already. So let me go back to the very beginning. Hello, welcome to the chat, Fairy Girl. Glad to see you. Hello, Cherry Jubilee. Glad to see you as well. Let me keep going. Sine, hello, welcome to the chat. Dragon Man Sassin, hello. Liberty Can and Miranda, hello, welcome to the chat. Auntie Lou, I see you with your glass of wine. That's so cool. Welcome to the chat. Okay, guys. So I'm so glad you're happy to be here today. Very, very glad to see that. Happy that you are here. So let me just jump in. Okay, guys, we've been talking a lot lately about sociopaths, psychopaths, individuals that just don't seem to have a conscience. They don't seem to have any level of empathy, and having family members who are like this is just, it's just, for lack of a clinical term, it's just unnerving because you can't get your thoughts across, you can't get your feelings across, you can't even explain your behaviors and try to make some kind of sensible connection, because the sociopath has absolutely no ability to empathize and absolutely no ability to connect with you at a deeper level. They tend to be very, very shallow individuals. And primarily they function off of reputation. They function off of status and socioeconomic status, and arrogance, and a need for control and dominance and power and superiority. They function off of those things. They are not individuals who can relate to you, and so that can leave you feeling really cold and just stepped on, for lack of a better word. I will let you know, I've had personal and professional, if I can speak, experiences with sociopaths, and it hasn't been an easy journey at all. Now, my personal experience with a sociopath really left me feeling, and I was young at the time, I might have been like 21, and it left me feeling kind of duped and kind of lonely, to have really believed in a really good friend who ended up not being who I thought she was. And I thought I had a really good friend that could study with me in college and tell me about guys, and guys that maybe I needed to stay away from, guys that were probably good guys. I needed a good friend to kind of walk me through some difficult points of my early adulthood, 21, 22, 23. And she ended up being totally opposite of what I thought. Now, a sociopath in my family, boy, that's a whole other scenario, and it's way down in my family line, but it's close enough to have made some kind of footprint in my life. And after dealing with both of those experiences, personal and even professional, both of those personal experiences, I should say, and I've also had many professional experiences. After dealing with those things, I started becoming an expert, so to speak, in identifying them. And the more I learned about how they think, how they behave, what they can and cannot feel, what they respond to, what they do and do not respond to, I really began to bring it to the channel. And then I also began to, see a little bit deeper into the mind of a sociopath. So I'm going to highlight a couple of things tonight with some of you about this. There's a reason I talk about it so much on the channel, guys, and especially in the family context. It's really hard to connect within a family with a sociopath. So I'm going to give you some things to think about. Let me just say, sociopaths are made, but they can also be born in a lot of ways. So I'm going to point those out tonight. Let me just acknowledge some of the people that are signing on here. Hello, Unicorn Universe. Unicorn Universe, so glad to have you. Welcome to the chat. I don't remember seeing you before, so very, very glad to see you. Says, hi, I'm battling and healing daily. Hello to you as well. And I'm so sorry to hear that. I think, and I want to comment on that just a little bit. I think we all battle and struggle daily, some more than others, of course, but just so that you don't feel alone, I think daily life and just opening your eyes and getting out of bed and knowing what is ahead of you is battling every day. So you're certainly not alone in that. Um, Blessed in every area of my life. Happy Thursday to you too. That means Friday's coming. Welcome to the chat. Glad to see you. Um, Auntie Lou says, I'm still on my family hiatus. Very peaceful. I'm sure. I'm sure. Cherish Jubilee says, I was raised by a sociopath and I know that now. Yeah, absolutely. I think Cherish Jubilee, once you realize that, oh my God, I was raised by a sociopathic mother, a sociopathic parent, a father, then you can kind of piece everything together and your life starts to make a little bit more sense. It's like a puzzle, right? You're learning about the emotions and the thoughts and the behaviors of the parent, and then that kind of helps you understand your own feelings and behaviors. And then next thing you know, you've kind of got a storyline and you understand what's kind of happened to you. So it's good to have that awareness for sure. Unicorn Universe says, yes, they are shallow, dismissive, and dehumanizing. Inexorable. I probably messed that up completely. I have an issue when it comes to screen names. But hello, welcome to the chat. So glad to have you as well. All right, Ronald Zion, I see you. Welcome to the chat. Says, I have close family that I had to cut off for my own survival. Sociopaths have distorted my reality. So glad that you used that final few sentence there, those words, because sociopaths do distort your reality. And I'm going to point out in a little bit here what they actually do to you to cause you to feel a little bit like you're not well, like maybe you're the sick one, or maybe you're the one who's not thinking right. They really do force upon you gaslighting, right? So they know how to take what's usually your healthy reality and distort it in such a way that you begin to then doubt yourself, and then you begin possibly reacting to them in ways that you shouldn't, but they've hit a button on the inside. Most sociopaths understand your buttons, and that's what makes them a sociopath. They know what to do, they know what to say, they know how you're likely feeling, they have a cognitive level of understanding. They can't empathize, right? They can't feel necessarily, but they can definitely, in a cognitive sense, relate to you. And so they can kind of know what you're feeling and really work on you and break you. And then, at some points build you up. Maybe they seem like they like you or they love you and everything is great. And then they knock you down again. And they can do that because they have what we call cognitive empathy. They can cognitively and intellectually relate to you when it comes to what you're feeling, although they can't feel it. So yes, the short answer is yes. I agree with you, Ronald. They do distort your reality. So let me just jump into this, okay, guys? I think it's important for you to understand that there is really no difference between a sociopath and a psychopath. Now, I said that to one of my clients one day, and they were like, "Oh my God, please don't mess with my mind." And I'm like, you got to know the truth. There's a lot of pop psychology, a lot of social media, a lot of articles, and unfortunately some agencies and businesses that proclaim to be knowledgeable, and yet they put out the wrong information. So the correct way to look at a sociopath and a psychopath is that they are basically the same thing. The only difference, and this is the absolute only difference between a psychopath and a sociopath, is that a psychopath tends to be a little bit more suave. They tend to be a little bit more organized. They tend to be a little bit more educated. And they also tend to be a little bit more planned, consistent, and strategic than the sociopath. So kind of think of it as Dumb and Dumber, if you will. The sociopath has all of those abilities to dupe you and to deceive you and to lie and to triangulate, but they tend to be really clumsy, whereas the psychopath has all of those abilities, but they tend to execute a whole lot differently. Their execution plan, or the plan that they set up to execute what they want to do to you, is usually more structured, more consistent, more strategic. You probably have heard of research that says and highlights that sociopaths are made, psychopaths are born. But let me also highlight that the reason behind sociopathy is not fully understood. And that is the hard part about it. We understand it to a certain extent, and we understand it as a field of psychology enough to bring you this kind of information that you're getting here on my channel and on many other channels on YouTube, but we don't understand 100% where it starts, what's really going on, and we're really lacking a clear 100% explanation as to why there are some people that are born as sociopaths and others are born as narcissists and others are born as psychopaths. What is that thing that creates that? And we don't have that 100% clear answer. We've pulled some things from data and we've put them on the table, and we've created the diagnosis antisocial personality disorder, guys. And that's really like a milder version of sociopathy. And we can clinically assign that diagnosis to an individual. But having a clear understanding as to where that's coming from at all times, and where that started, we're still kind of scraping for information, right? Where we're trying to figure out what's what. We're trying to make heads or tails of where this actually starts. Now, let me highlight to you, since we're talking about, where sociopaths are made and how they're made, let me highlight that in a diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder, we're really not calling the person a sociopath. We're just saying that this individual has a lot of antisocial traits that are concerning. There's been an interruption of personality development. Something along the way has been disrupted. And so now this family member, now this individual, this person is a sociopath because there's been clear interruption of personality development. Personality development starts really young. And depending on what you're exposed to, depending on the trauma that you're exposed to, depending on what kind of parents you've been exposed to, right, can highlight or kind of make an imprint on, I should say, it can make an imprint upon your genes and upon how you're developing over time. And so there's been clear evidence with antisocial personality disorder and sociopathy and psychopathy that there's been a clear interruption of personality development. There's also that biological genetic piece, right? That genetic piece that we can't change, right? We can't change who we are on the inside genetically. And I'm going to post in the description box below some information that I discussed a couple years ago on genes and sociopathy and intergenerational trauma. So I'll post that at the end of this live chat. But, we have genes. We also have, again, that interruption of personality development. We also have a large number of what we call risk factors that can cause or add to the development of a sociopath. Risk factors are things that, kind of come into our life in some form or fashion, and they impact us negatively, right? Substance abusing or drug abusing parents, low income, low education, low opportunities in the world, or little to no opportunities, I should say, having an untreated mental illness, being raised by abusive parents, experiencing multiple traumas, especially during infancy and between those really sensitive ages of infancy and 5 years old, right? Experiencing some kind of trauma in that stage of development. Really being abused and neglected and not really loved by your caretakers, your guardian, your parents. All of those things are known as risk factors. If you think of the ACEs questionnaire, and I might post a link in the description box for you as well. If you think about that questionnaire, or if you Google ACEs, ACES, I think. I probably messed that up as well. I'll just post a link for you, okay? So if you look at the ACEs questionnaire, you're going to see a bunch of questions about trauma. And if you've experienced all of those things, it's possible that the development of your personality over time may have been interrupted. So that's important to keep in mind as well as a cause of sociopathy. Also brain trauma. There's a lot of research now that talks about traumatic brain injury directly causing sociopathic behavior or directly causing a change in character and a change in personality development. I mention this so much on my channel. You guys are probably well aware of it. It is Phineas Gage. Phineas Gage was a railroad worker, and this is back, I'm going to say, in the 1950s, excuse me. And what he did is, he's working on this iron track, right, on the railroad, and something went haywire. And that there was like a long iron piece, and I'm going to see if I can find it for you and give you a visual. And that iron piece went through, I'm going to say, the left side. So it passed this side of his face. It went through the left part of his eye and went through his frontal lobes. Now, the frontal lobes is an area behind the forehead, and it has a lot to do with very important pieces of our existence, like decision making, personality development, impulse control, executive functioning, being able to kind of weigh pros and cons of things, being able to process, pump the brakes, pause before acting impulsively. All of that was disrupted for Phineas Gage. Oh my Lord, I'm dropping my phone. I need to go home. I need to go home, guys. I really do. Let me see if I can find Phineas Gage. Phineas Gage. All right, so here we go. I'm going to show you. So this is Phineas Gage, and I don't know if you guys can see this. Hopefully you can. Here's Phineas Gage. Oh boy, here you go. And as you can see, the rod went through his eye, through his frontal lobe, and mysteriously he survived. And so here's what happened after he got surgery. They removed the iron rod. They also ended up kind of, closing up that area of his eye. His personality switched from calm, humble, modest, to raging, angry, no empathy for others, very cold and callous. And so his immediate switch in behavior gave researchers the idea that, okay, maybe we need to study sociopathy and psychopathy and see if there's something going on in the frontal lobes. And so there's a ton of research, not enough. We need more. There's not enough, but there's a ton of research that highlights that the frontal lobe area is impacted in a sociopath. Can you imagine that being one of your family members, right? You want to take them to therapy. You want to see, maybe, I don't know, maybe you have compassion and you want to love them and you want to be in their life. So you take them to therapy. You want them to get better. You want them to do better. But I'm sure, hearing this is probably not very positive, which is, okay, they can do all of that, but there's something going on in the frontal lobes. And so therefore, they're kind of, I'm not going to say doomed, but they have some elements to them that can't be changed. And so you can't change somebody's brain, right, in psychotherapy necessarily, especially if it's been a traumatic brain injury. All right, guys, let me go to the chat box before we continue on this conversation. Okay, so Sine says, I would always say, how has my mom mastered making me feel so small and worthless with what seems like minimal effort? Being knowledgeable has given me confidence. Yeah, absolutely. You want to keep in mind that, sociopaths know how to push your buttons. Again, they have cognitive empathy. They know what you're going to feel. So if they push that right button or push that accelerator, they know that I should probably clarify and say accelerator pedal. They know that you're going to react a certain way, and that's how they get you every time. So they kind of think out what they're going to say, what they're going to do, and how it's going to make you feel. Some of them are very strategic in how they think. Doesn't mean they're not clumsy, right? They're not as good as the psychopath, but they can still plan things. And so if you have shown some kind of insecurity or vulnerability in the past, not saying this is the case, Sine, but maybe mom knows that's the button right there. And so she's able to push that button. There's some kind of internal stimulation that comes with sociopaths. They need that. And so they'll do whatever it takes. They will. Auntie Lou says, wow, I went through a mental a mental friend list this morning, and I realized that I never got proper reciprocation of support from them. They were friends. Yeah, absolutely. It's only when you gain that knowledge, you gain that insight, you gain those abilities to kind of see past the shallow pieces of everything in the social realm that you can then say, you know what, you're not a friend, you're not a friend, and neither are you over there. I'm out of here. So it makes separating from them a whole lot better. Michelle McGlon, I hope I got that right. Hello, back to you. Welcome to the chat. Oh my God, I'm hitting the wrong buttons. Hold on, guys. Okay, here we go. Unicorn Universe, you were censored, but I approved it. You're good to go. Says being autistic and disabled is a nightmare. It's not okay. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's like double whammy, right? Church Jubilee says it totally makes sense how she, referring to her mom, was made. That's why she hated my grandfather. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, there's probably some generational stuff going on there. Sir Crumbly Blundertris, forgive me, please, says, thanks for your work. Hi, folks. Yes, you're welcome. And thank you for being in the chat tonight. Auntie Lou. Okay, we're going to skip that one. Liberty Can says, my scared hands are still healing from holding the cells. Oh my God. Oof, that does not sound good. I'm sorry, Liberty Can. I see your emojis on here. My Lord. Larry Cork, welcome to the chat. So glad to see you. Says, I think I am codependent. I seem to attract this sort of person when I was younger. I can see who these people now for who they were as an older man. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it seems like, Larry, age kind of progresses you, and you're able to kind of look back and say, wait a minute, that wasn't okay. I do that too. Even in my late 30s now, I look back and I'm like, no, that wasn't supposed to happen. I was asleep, or I look back and I say, no, that wasn't okay. So that's something that's a really good and healthy process. But let me also address the codependent piece of this. Okay, you could be and you could not be. I think sometimes codependency does kind of attract and pull to us certain kinds of people. But I also think people who are sociopaths are attracted to codependent people. It's kind of like a bi-directional influence. There's, one thing going both ways, right? So it may not just be you, Larry. It could also be the sociopath who found you, right? And they're attracted to you because you are codependent, or they're attracted to you because you're kind and you're giving and whatever else you may be. And that kind of happens in families as well. That cousin, right? Or that long lost brother that hasn't been around for many decades, now for some reason is attached to you and won't let you go, and they just happen to be sociopathic. So there's what we call a bi-directional influence. It can go both ways. Inexorable says, the sociopaths in my life have medical and psychology backgrounds, making them absolutely insidious. I just celebrated my birthday and having gone no contact, it was a relief to not be contacted. Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's quite a statement for sure. Let me just piggyback on that one and kind of say that, I'm trying to be careful. I'm trying to be careful in what I say, because my colleagues are all medical and psychology professionals. But let me say, they can be insidious because they are ahead of the game, right? So people who study psychology, study human behavior, study science, they are ahead of the game because they have that knowledge. And being a sociopath and having that much power and knowledge is totally insidious. I absolutely agree. Being in the medical field and having the power to make decisions over other people's health and needs, that's also terrifying. So, it is scary, and I'm going to say, it is insidious. I agree with you on that one. But I also want to say, too, that there are a lot of doctors and psychologists who are sociopaths. We just don't talk enough about it, you know? There are times I can sit in my own professional realm if I'm training somebody, right? Or if I'm teaching, because I also teach whatever I'm doing. If I'm at a conference and a coworker walks up or somebody who, admires my work, whatever, I can point it out in a minute that you're sociopathic, you're shallow, you're attention seeking, you're not in this field for the right reasons, you know? Sadly, there are people who are in this field who are also sociopaths. MV, hello, back to you. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. Yeah, I like what you're saying, Liberty Can. Liberty Can says you get more clear each year. Yes, the further away from the sociopath family members that you get, the more clear things become. Hello, Kyra Knows. Welcome to the chat. So glad to see you. Hello, Tanya Turner. Nice to see you. Welcome to the chat. John Park. Hello. Welcome to the chat. Yeah, Inexorable says blocking these kind of people is so good. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Unicorn Universe says blocked for life, at least on social media. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so let me walk you guys through the road to sociopathy. Let me show you kind of what research is saying, okay? So, it's not 100% clear, guys, but let me say this is the best we've gotten in a while. And this is the best definition of not being treated for mental health concerns that that we could get, or that we could have. Not being treated for 3 specific disorders, or having very poor treatment, or again no treatment at all, can create sociopathy. So let me show you what's going on here. And I usually draw this out for my families when they come into my office and they're confused as to how a child with a particular disorder somehow developed into adolescence, a young adulthood, and older adulthood, and has now become a sociopath. So let me also put out a disclaimer really briefly that this is not 100% the case for everybody. This is just a population of people who tend to be victims of not getting treatment or getting poor treatment. Okay, so I'm going to draw this out for you. So I am going to get a better marker, guys. Hold on. So we have the diagnosis of ADHD. Okay. So we have ADHD. I need to get some new markers. Okay. This is insane. ADHD. Okay. And if it's not treated, so let's say, this is a child at the age of 5. Okay. So we have a 5-year-old with ADHD, and it could be inattention. That's the main issue, or it could be impulsivity and hyperactivity. Okay. So let's say that's going on for the next 5 years. The child is now 10. Okay. And this may have happened in your family. So this is why I'm doing this with you. So the child is now 10 years old. ADHD never got taken care of appropriately, or didn't get taken care of at all. So then what happens at age 10? Well, you've got an impulsive kid who backtalks. They are rude, inconsiderate, cold. They don't seem to have empathy. To a certain extent, they like to challenge authority. They really don't care to do their schoolwork, and they tend to be very disinterested in anything that has anything to do with education. Okay, that can also be considered ODD. So oppositional defiant disorder. So ADHD, that doesn't get treated, or it's poor treatment. We get to age 10. Okay, the symptoms grow. If you don't treat a problem, or if it's not treated appropriately, then the symptoms can grow. And so in this example, the symptoms are growing. And so now here we are at age 10 with oppositional defiant disorder. The parent or the family member may try to get that person help, that child help. Maybe they're on medication, maybe they're going to therapy, but for some reason, nothing's working, right? So let's say, 5 years down the road, now we've got a 15-year-old, right? And so now this 15-year-old is stealing cars, being an accomplice to burglaries or robberies, stealing things at stores and out of people's homes and off desks at school, skipping school, Now they are essentially delinquent, right? And they may have medication, they may be going to therapy, but for some reason, they're getting worse over time. So, ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder, conduct disorder, right? And conduct disorder is really like a childhood sociopathy, okay? So, think of a child, think of a 15-year-old, think of a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old that's coming across as a sociopath. Children cannot be categorized as a sociopath, neither can adolescents. So what does the clinical field do to make up for that void, right? Well, we call it conduct disorder, and that's what is happening here. So the child, a sociopathy is conduct disorder. You can put it that way. Let's say, for example, conduct disorder does not get treated appropriately, and that child for the next 5 years continues to struggle. Now you've got an 18-year-old, right, who has antisocial personality disorder. And here's how this looks on a scale, okay? And again, this is not everybody. This is just some people. ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder, conduct disorder, and then antisocial personality disorder. Now, let's say, for example, that individual with antisocial personality disorder refuses to get help, right? Because they're not the problem, you're the problem, right? So let's say that happens. Well, over the next 10 years of their life, they start doing some really antisocial things like harming other people, dating underage people, right? Maybe they're engaging in, a sexual molestation of children. Maybe they are engaging in some other thing. What happens is those symptoms get worse, and then they become a sociopath, okay? And then they become that sociopath that we're talking about in today's live chat. So that is like a little bit of a visual of how sociopathy can begin, and it's like a road, and some children, as frightening as this is, some children follow that road. And no matter what an adult does, they can't get off that road to sociopathy. And so then they become that adult that just has no control over their behaviors, their thoughts, the way they see life, the way they see people. It is scary, to say the least. It's frightening. Before I go to the chat box, I'll briefly share this. I'm going to say maybe 8 or 7 years ago, because I've been in the field for 14 years, but 7 or 8 years ago, I worked in a juvenile delinquency center, and it was horrific. The adolescents that I saw, there was like a group of I worked with adolescent boys. So there were a group of adolescent boys over here on this side of the residential treatment facility that were like sociopaths in the making, like literal sociopaths. And then there were also some people, adolescents, who were very sweet and very loving. They just had a very traumatic lifeline, and that's what caused their antisocial behavior. But it was really interesting for me to walk through the halls and really deal with those antisocial sociopathic boys on one floor, and just the way they thought and behaved and how they saw people and women and therapists and life. It was just terrifying, to say the least. Let me grab my charger, guys. My computer's gonna go on me again. And I'm going to go back to the chat box. So give me 1 minute, guys. All right. So you guys are commenting, saying, Auntie Lou, she knows Phineas Gage. Wonderful. Emma V says, I read an interesting, fairly new study on babies about the cause of how narcissism, psychopaths, and apparently it's parenting style. Parents that let their baby cry for hours. Yeah, that's part of it. That's a risk factor. That's a risk factor. It's something that happens on that developmental path of personality, and letting babies just be there by themselves crying and needing that love and affection really can over time develop this coldness in them, right? They learn how to self-soothe over time, but the process of having to learn how to self-soothe is traumatic, right? Imagine needing a hug and needing, just that tight squeeze from a parent that says everything is going to be okay, and not ever having access to that, and coming into the world not knowing what this is all about, right? So that is trauma, and that trauma can then cause antisocial personality disorder. It's very, very sad. Thank you for mentioning that, Em. That's very important. Liberty Can says, how sad. Yeah, absolutely. Auntie Lou says, wow. Yeah, absolutely. Auntie Lou says brain chemicals also. Yeah, addiction. That's a part of the puzzle as well. Thank you for bringing that up. hmm Sir Crumbly Blunder Trust says some folks say L. Ron Hubbard had temporal lobe epilepsy or something like that. Yeah, absolutely. So again, brain trauma. Think of traumatic brain injury. That's a big piece of the puzzle for sociopaths. It doesn't necessarily mean that we should feel sorry for them, because the minute you feel sorry for them, that's the minute they try to take you and kind of hold you captive and manipulate you and triangulate, and the list goes on. But it is a very important piece of the puzzle, because sometimes you may need to know that, okay, my neighbor over there has a traumatic brain injury. She didn't have a very good upbringing. She's pretty cruel and cold and mean. This could mean that she's a sociopath. I'm going to store it in the back of my mind, right? So knowing about that brain research can kind of help you place people. You don't want to be judgmental, but if you ever find out that they do have a traumatic brain injury and they seem a little antisocial or sociopathic, then you can kind of place them a little bit. Emma Lou says, welcome to the chat. Says, interesting topic. Too bad for Mr. Gage. Happens to people in car accidents too. They get emotional problems due to brain damage. Absolutely. Glad you brought that up. I have at least, I'm going to say 5 clients right now who have been in car crashes, and one had a severe brain injury. But it's honestly, in my heart and mind, I believe it's a miracle of God that she's walking, she's talking, she's functioning. The tragedy was so bad, but she came out of that living and breathing, and she's just a normal 18-year-old girl, and it's so wonderful. But I also have other clients who have had traumatic brain injuries from car accidents, and their personality, according to the family, shifted. And I mean, it shifted. I've seen home videos where that loved one was so loving and happy and smiling all the time, and now they're grumpy and mean and irritable, and it's just a whole thing. It's a whole thing. Tanya Turner says, I've attracted the wrong people for so long until I realized my friend choices were tied to childhood family dynamic stuff. Yeah. Very glad you brought that up, because I think, a lot of us, and especially those who are not, studying human behavior, we kind of think something's wrong with me on the inside. I must be the problem. And that's why I keep attracting these kind of people. And that's why that family member over there wants to be a part of me. The reality is, while that could be true, the other piece of this is, let me make sure before I say the next thing that it is childhood trauma. I want to make sure that I'm addressing directly what you're saying here. It is childhood trauma that kind of causes something within you to kind of attach to people, not always, but sometimes. Hello, Sean Hammer. Glad to see you. Welcome to the chat. I see you there now. I was behind in comments, but now I see you. Yeah. Yeah, Auntie Lou says, I feel so sorry for all the victims of lobotomies who were never given humane mental treatment. Yeah. In case you guys don't know what lobotomies are, it's basically the removal of taking out your frontal lobes, taking out the frontal part of your brain. And that would happen way back in the 1800s, 1900s, where, a doctor didn't know how to treat mental illness. And so they cut a huge piece of your skull out. They would remove your frontal lobes and then put your skull back. And so that's what she's referring to. It's pretty tragic and traumatic, to say the least. Tanya Turner says, hi, Tam, can you do a chat on how we manage our friendships given the severity of our childhoods and family situations? Most don't understand us, or the depression, no contact, or just how we manage. Yeah, absolutely. I have a live chat coming up pretty soon where I'm going to talk about kind of living on your own and being on your own with a toxic family and not having that support, walking away from that family and just kind of trying to exist in a world that's all about family, coming up very soon. And actually, I'm going to take a picture of your comment because I will incorporate that into the next live chat for sure. Okay, gotcha. Okay. Oh, thank you, Auntie Lou says hit the like button. Thank you so much. You guys are so wonderful. And I say this every time. Sir Crumbly Blundertress says they weaponize empathy and kindness. Yes, I should close down the whole chat on that one, but I have a little bit more to go with you guys. But yes, you're correct. Like individuals who are sociopaths, they do weaponize compassion. I'm going to throw that in there. Empathy, right? And they also weaponize kindness. That's just who they are. They take something and they turn it into something it shouldn't be. That's just who they are. Hello, my visuals. So glad to see you. Welcome to the chat. Dragon Man Sasson says, I used to work for healthcare organizations. I noticed that some, but not all doctors can be very arrogant. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you probably did notice a few who were just a little on the sociopath line there. They're walking a thin line, but then there's also some doctors who are just, really confident and they could come across a way that they're not as well. So I should throw that in there. Sean Hammer says, I'm done giving time to people who are unable to demonstrate basic respect. I like that. He says, I've served my sentence let's try this again. All right. So I'm done giving time to people who are unable to demonstrate basic respect. Yes, I've served my sentence trying to perception manage what is, in essence, the weakness and immaturity of others. Very well said. If I weren't so exhausted tonight, I would have read that correctly. Very, very well said. I like that. Absolutely. I don't even know what to comment because that's like a full comment. There's nothing else for me to say. I like that, Sean Hammer. Okay. Orbi Riba, I don't remember seeing you on the channel. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you. Says, that is exactly one of the reasons why all this matrix system is dangerous, because you never know who became police officers, teachers, or whatever. Absolutely, 100%. I'm so glad you brought that up, because do I know police? Yes. Are we good friends? Yeah. Do I know attorneys and judges? Are we good friends? Yeah. My own cousin's a judge. Do we know, other powerful people in the world? Yeah, absolutely. And the question for me has always been, who are you really, right? Who are you really when you come out of that role, right? And maybe we all do that to a certain extent, but I feel like because I'm a therapist, I do that a little bit more. And maybe for those who have a trauma history, you do that as well, right? You question, like, who are you really, but it is a matrix system, and it is a frightening thing for sure, that we don't know who is unstable, and we also don't know who's a sociopath and a psychopath beneath that label. That's the scary piece of the puzzle. I agree. John Park says, couldn't agree more, Tamara. Sociopaths in a place of authority is as insidious as it gets. Unfortunately, I've come across them, but I was always intuitive enough to pick up on cold, callous traits. Yeah, absolutely. Me too, John Park. I think you and I may even be considered empaths, where we can kind of sense the environment. If I walk into a room, I can sense the climate. And I know where I stand. I know if I'm in a room of people who are kind. I know if I'm in a room where people are judgmental. I also know what I should and should not say. And I also know when the heat is being turned up in the room as well. So, those of us who can kind of tap into that, we would be considered empaths. We have that ability to kind of sense, right, what's going on. We're intuitive for sure. Okay, let me get back to the chat, guys. Let me get back to what we're talking about. Then I'll get back to the chat and then we'll wrap up. Okay, so I want to highlight just a few common behaviors that you are likely to see in a sociopath within your family and even outside of your family. I feel like we've kind of focused on friendships and relationships as well. So some common behaviors, you guys are well aware of this, but I want to go over briefly. A low sense of morals or none at all. Recent research has suggested that there's a lot of sociopaths who have this much in terms of a value system or this much in terms of morals. They care nothing about morals. They are complete oppositional, defiant, rebellious individuals who tend to bring drama and chaos, hurt and pain. They have a low sense of morals. And can you imagine how many people are like this who are kind of hiding behind the scenes, right? You've got a sociopathic grandmother, a sociopathic mom or dad, a sociopathic boss, maybe a sociopathic friend, and they're hiding because they don't have a sense of morals. And so what do they hide behind? Well, they may hide behind what society says is a good moral to have: religion, right? Caring for children, volunteer, donating, caring for the homeless, right? They may attach all those things to themselves in hopes of creating kind of like this smoke screen, but at the core of who they are, they have no morals. They also have a really low conscience. They don't seem to have the ability to pump the brakes and process what they've done. That is not there. So let's say, for example, in your daily life, you walk across or you come across a sociopath and they gyp you in line, and then they arrogantly order their food, and then they give you eye contact and look at you and walk away and keep going. That most likely is little to no conscience, right? They can do that and go to bed at night and still feel okay. Sociopaths also do not have a conscience. Not all of them, but most of them don't. And so they don't have that ability like you do. Maybe you can go to bed tonight and feel bad about something you said or did, but the sociopath doesn't have that capability. So I often tell my clients, don't hope that that person goes to bed tonight and feels sorry about what they did to you today, because they don't have the capacity. It's not there, They also have misplaced values. So let's say you do run across a sociopath who has a little bit of values going, right? They're misplaced. They want money. They want beauty, handsomeness, success, prestige, a good reputation, material wealth, right? Their values are misplaced. There's also manipulation and a very cold disregard for other people. Or maybe I should separate those things, right? They're manipulative, they're cold, and they disregard you. They don't know how to tap into you as a human being would, with a heart, with a mind, with a conscience, with a sense of self-awareness. It's not there, right? They are manipulative, disregarding, and cold. Let me throw in here too, guys, the jealous parents. Now, I hate to talk about this, because I really want parents to be strong forces in the lives of their children. But let me just say, there's a such thing as a jealous parent, and I talk about it a lot on this channel. If you're new to the live chat or to my channel, all my regulars know I talk about jealous parents. I'll post a link to those videos in the description box a little later tonight or tomorrow. But you want to keep that in mind. A jealous parent is also most likely a sociopath. All right, I'm going to go to the chat box and then we're going to wrap up, guys. Yeah, Liberty Cam says narcissistic people or dark triad have absolutely no boundaries, has absolutely no boundaries, or has no boundaries. Absolutely. Sean Hammer says we must establish strong, healthy boundaries, or they will slowly wear us down in situations where we cannot avoid their presence. Absolutely. Very well said. Sean, I think you're gonna earn a place next to me in this office. I'm gonna get you a chair. My visual says, what if you're a child of a sociopath? Can the child still heal and function properly? Excuse me, guys. Yes and no. So let me answer that. That's a fantastic question. Let me just say it depends, right? It depends on how intense the situation was, the duration of the situation, whether you experienced trauma, to what extent that parent has been an impact in your life, right? All of those are variables that we don't know. Now, if I look at this on a broad scale and say sociopathic parents are inept, right? They're unhealthy, they're cold, they're callous, they're self-centered, they're narcissistic, whatever, then I would say, yeah, absolutely. The child, as an adolescent, as an adult, is not going to have a very healthy development over time, because that sociopathic parent shares their views. think of, for example, if you have a very healthy parent, you have conversations with them, right? And so a lot of their thoughts become your thoughts. A lot of the ways that they see things, excuse me, can sometimes be the way you see them as well. They can be a direct impact on how you view yourself and the world. And so if you have a sociopathic parent who is cold and callous and rude, you're either going to be broken down by them, right? Or they're either going to kind of pull you into their sociopathic world and you become like them. So, either of those could be the case. And you may also be the kind of child, adolescent, and adult who can walk away from that and just be a wonderful person. So that's the variables there, genes and environment, what you experience and what you've been born with really are important factors. All right. Orbi Riba says, it's just that we give them permission to affect our lives. Absolutely. And that's a fantastic statement. I think we give them permission by not knowing who they are. And we also give them permission by allowing them to continue to traumatize and to harm us, And so we've got to get out of that, which is why I developed the channel so that we can understand through each and every video on this channel that it's a whole process. And sometimes it's a whole traumatic process. And you need a lot of support to get out of that mindset of allowing them to harm you, Okay, let me make sure I'm not missing anyone. Hurricane Champagne, welcome to the chat. So glad to see you. Says, this sounds like Jeffrey Dahmer. Yeah, absolutely. Jeffrey Dahmer was a huge psychopath, but again, he was a little bit smarter than the sociopaths because he was suave and he was cool and he was handsome and he knew what to say to the ladies and he knew, what he wanted to do in court. He also represented himself as an attorney and he did a pretty good job. He understood the lingo, right? So, he was a dangerous individual because he had all those components going for him. It's disturbing to say the least. Okay. Okay. John Park says the blessings are once we work on ourselves and heal, we stop attracting them into our lives because they can pick up on who to avoid. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great comment, John. The other piece of that too, and I'm going to kind of turn this a little bit so we can look at it from a different angle as well. I think that once we heal, we also begin to see them a lot more clear. And so it's almost like a flashlight, right? And we are able to kind of scope out the people who are trying to be a part of us after experiencing such a person as a sociopath. And so it makes it a lot easier for us to kind of maneuver our way out of their life and to stay out, and to block whoever may be trying to get involved. There was a time, guys, believe it or not, there was a time in my life where, I saw a few sociopaths coming up to talk to me, to date me, to whatever. And automatically my response was, nope, I'm not interested. I get you. I see you. I know what you're all about. No, thank you. And it wasn't me being judgmental. It was me just knowing who a sociopath was. I could see you a mile away. Okay. Emma Lou says, I think realistically, empathy and kindness is only relevant in one's immediate circle of close friends. The idea that people would be kind to all of society does not seem like an evolutionary reality. I mean, I disagree, Emma. I disagree. I think human kindness and empathy and love should be a thing, And so just being a human means that you should have a heart, right? To care for that person over there who's homeless or to care for that lost dog over there who's looking for his own or whatever the case may be. We need to have that, right? So if a stranger doesn't show that kind of love, right? Or that kind of common decency, then I question if you're a sociopath or not. If someone holds a door open for you, you got to say thank you. If someone bumps into you in a store and says, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do that. That's something we need to do. You know what I mean? It's normal. It's, but if you don't do that, then, there's probably some sociopathy there. Yes, you're welcome, Tanya. if I have it right. You're welcome. She says, thank you, Tamara. You help us feel seen. Thanks for screenshot for future chat. You are the bomb. Thank you so much. You're the bomb too. All of you guys are the bomb. My younger brother, yes, you're welcome, Liberty Can. You're welcome, and you're welcome, John Park. My younger brother, he's like, look, Tam, okay. He calls me Tam as well. He's like, look, all right, I'm sick of dealing with all these consultation calls. Stop doing those YouTube videos. Like, he's really like touchy about that, you know. Sometimes when I can't like look at my emails, I'm like, here, bro, you know, look at my emails. He's like, oh my God, stop talking about sociopaths. You wouldn't get all these messages, you know. Hi, Eileen Farley. Welcome to the chat. So glad to see you. Says, how can I cut my sociopathic mother off and not feel bad just because she is my mother? That is a loaded question, and I have to go, and I can't answer that loaded question without taking another 10 minutes. So here's what I'm going to do, Eileen. I'm going to take a picture of your comment. I'm going to bring it back in the next live chat, which is next Wednesday. I'm not going to post a video this Sunday. I think this video was long enough. I'm going to go ahead and see you guys next Wednesday in a live chat. And I will bring this up again, Eileen. So please come back because I do want to answer that question. Mr. T, hello. Welcome to the chat. Says, I absolutely love you and your content. Thank you so much. Much love to you as well. Thank you. All right. I want to make sure I'm getting everybody before I sign off. I like to at least say hello and mention your name. Forever Healing 100, you're welcome. Glad to see you. Welcome to the chat as well. Let me approve your comment, MV. Good night, Dragon Man Assassin. All right, guys. Yes, I sure am. Thank you, Ronald. I'm signing off right now. Love you guys. I will see you next Wednesday. If you have further comments, questions, post it. I will get back to you. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.